All the materials will be available for you. It is 250 MB, so Facebook doesn't allow it to me to add it to the Facebook group, but we will figure out a way how to get this going. And by the end of the seminar, for sure, you will have it on a USB stick. Other questions that you have regards to the presentation? All clear? Okay.
I want to ask about the preservation in centrifugal factors. Is there any solution towards that? If the city is really focused on tourism, is there any possible solution, or is we can use the case of Paris, because in Indonesia there are a lot of cities that focus only for the tourism bit. So it's kind of is this kind of value is really contradicting between how we manage the tourism or heritage and the growth, economic growth?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. As I said, there is no free lunch, there is no one answer to all of it. Most of the time, the policymaker, when they step in, they have a one-size-fits-it-all approach. That's the regulation, right? You regulate for the whole city. However, what could be part of it is decentralizing in the city, giving more parts to, especially if we talk about larger cities, governance of neighborhoods and how you deal with neighborhoods. And then you will find that there is an urge for preservation in some, and in others it is really, almost everything goes. But it comes from the people and from a bottom-up approach what is needed. The regulator itself, if they have to regulate, they often over-regulate or under-regulate, and they don't know the right policies for preserving while still maintaining a healthy business environment. Think of the example of Penang. Like, you want to have tourism there, but you also want to have diversity, because otherwise the Detroit example kicks in. If you put everything in one basket and your city is basically a Disneyland but nothing else, you will not build sufficient human capital. And if you believe my story, then human capital is what you want in a city, because for the long-term success of a city you need human capital. So therefore, and this is something we will explore, you have to look at bottom-up solutions. Again, the book that I recommended there, Order Without Design, or the works of Jane Jacobs, they come from bottom-up designs, like local governance strategy. Not different cities against each other, but really neighborhood governance is something that I encourage. Give a lot of power to local councils, and local councils is the most democratic initiative that you can have. Because in the local councils, people are affected by the decision that you take in your local council. You suffer directly from the cost of a wrong policy, basically, to speak frankly. But also people have an investment, they like it. There's also a lot of what is called deliberative democracy, where you can be very inclusive, you can bring different representatives in, so to ensure representation of parties, and then deliberate where should this neighborhood go. Okay, and this is kind of, a business district, it's not designed to live there, but in neighborhoods where people live but still want to have commercial interaction, it's very important that you take everybody in. And I guess the people who work in city planning here, in urban planning, they will tell you that this is the approach that they would precisely aim at and favor. However, there's a nice quote here. Hussein, I have to lend the book back for a second, because the author here says in one of the opening pages, he's an architect and an economist. So he says something like in the introduction of the book, he says, we are facing a paradoxical situation in the way cities are managed. The professional in charge of modifying outcomes through regulations, the planners, know very little about markets and how markets operate, and the professionals who understand markets and the urban economists, are seldom involved in the design of the regulations that aim at restraining these markets. It is not surprising that lack of interaction between the two professions cause serious dysfunction in the development of cities. So you have a story where the planners and the economists, who both should be considered when we talk about sustainable growth for cities, they both don't talk to each other. They also don't understand the concern of each other. And what these kind of talks do, they try to bring the two back together. And I think bottom-up urban planning is something that is very sensitive to economic principles and can also solve this paradox of preservation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, again, we will pick up on these topics throughout the whole week. We will now move to the case studies, and Ruben will walk you through the process how we will deal with these case studies.
All right. After listening to those fascinating insights from Sven, it's now time to get a little bit more active again. So we will break into groups. We mentioned at the beginning that this seminar is not completely about case studies, but sometimes they make sense, and that's why we have prepared 4 case studies. You find articles about these case studies, each case study actually is a city, already in the Facebook group. And in order to speed up the process a little bit, we will break into 4 different groups. And the groups are already randomly allocated by the Google algorithm. We had nothing to do with that. So you see only 3 here, because the 4th group will be our French-speaking participants. So you're not included here on this list, but you are group number 4. All our French-speaking participants.